Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tabunda Podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Caleb.
And today we are talking about the lovely Alita. Battle Angel.
This movie was kind of great. I really enjoyed myself with this movie.
All right, well, let's start off with why we saw this movie. Because it's kind of funny, because I actually kind of forced you to sing.
Yes, definitely.
I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, that looks weird and jarring and strange and not very good. And then I saw that Robert Rodriguez was attached to it, and then I got a little interested, and then I saw that it had a $200 million budget, and then I got very interested. Because I was just like, what the hell? And eventually, of course, I learned that it was a James Cameron production, and James Cameron himself was very attached to it. Apparently, he bought the rights to this movie a long time ago, and it's been kind of a passion project, it seems, somewhat, for him. So that explains the budget a little bit, but it does feel a little unhinged with that large of a budget on a somewhat risque product. I don't think Ghost in the Shell or a lot of other big blockbuster anime movies have done particularly well.
No. And yeah, I was interested in this movie just because it just reeked of being just a huge bomb. I didn't hear of anybody that was particularly interested in seeing it. I wasn't.
Same. Like, I knew people who didn't even know about it at all. I would mention it to a bunch of people, and no one, even with the colossal marketing campaign.
It's not like a well-known... I'd never heard of that manga before, or that anime. It's not like Akira or something that's like, if you've never seen it, you've maybe seen the DVD somewhere or something. But, yeah, so I didn't want to see it. You thought it would be a good podcast episode, and I was like, yeah, it probably will be, because it kind of looks bad. I thought it, kind of looked bad. It was definitely going to be a huge bomb. I went to go see it. I bought a beer when I went to the theater. I was like, I'm definitely going to need a drink for this because I don't even want to.
You were loathing going into it. I remember you texting.
I know, man. I was like, fuck.
You were sounded miserable on text.
I walked out of that thing just fucking elated. I was so pumped. I was like, that was not only all right. That's actually what I was most worried about. Was especially its Rotten Tomato scores in the 50s. That's the worst place for a movie like that to be. If it's really bad, it'll be maybe funny bad. But if it's in the 50s and it's a bomb and nobody saw it and it's all right, then you just
the road mediocre.
Yeah, you just kind of forget about it. But I'm happy that I'm not going to forget this movie. It's so crazy at parts that it earned my respect.
You definitely appreciate it because of its ridiculousness.
Yeah, there are things in this movie that while I was watching it, I was like, I have never seen this before. And if this movie doesn't get a sequel, which the whole time I was watching it, I was like, this movie's gonna bomb. I was like, I will never see this weird shit again. I will never see a human head on a shrimp robot body, wiggling around.
On a shrimp robot body? Who was on a shrimp robot body?
The
buff dude?
The big guy, yeah, when they take his head.
It wasn't on a shrimp. That was a spinal cord dangling.
Yeah,
it reminded me of what is it? Day of the Dead, when they're or not Day of the Dead, one of those old zombie movies. Fucking, I know people are yelling it in their heads right now. Return of the Living Dead, I think, but where they have the body and they're dissecting it, the spinal cord is wiggling around, leaking.
It was just just weird shit like that. And this movie has flaws, as a decent amount of flaws, but to me it was just balanced by really creative, weird shit that...
Well, before you go into a full synopsis, let me go ahead and give my spiel, because I'm not really done with the talking about the lead up to it. So I basically forced you into seeing it. I actually saw the second trailer again before another movie. And the second time I saw the trailer in the theaters, after doing all that research, I was like, you know what? This doesn't look terrible. These are the CGI and the special effects in it. Seeing it in the trailer on the big screen the second time, I wasn't looking at Alita's big eyes nonstop. Mm-hmm. I was looking at that, and I was like, this looks really fucking good, actually, in terms of aesthetics, at least. And I started getting more and more interested in it. Not necessarily thinking it was going to be great or anything. And then you went to see it, and then you said you liked it quite a bit, and I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe this is going to be an enjoyable, above mediocre movie that's just kind of weird and off, so it might turn off general audiences. I think I got my hopes up, and I think that was detrimental to my viewing, because I didn't really like it very much. At all, actually.
Yeah, I could see that.
We'll go into details with all of this, but we're kind of split, not dramatically split, or not divisively split, over the movie, but I think we are a little bit split on in terms of enjoyment factor. I just want to say before we go into critiquing this that we're critiquing James Cameron's production of Alita Battle Angel, directed by Robert Rodriguez. We are not critiquing the IP of Alita Battle Angel or the original story or the concept or anything of that. There's a lot of people going like full fanboy and like defending it like it would be a DC movie and just thrashing people online for not liking it. Some of the things we both found incredibly interesting in the movie is definitely stuff that was from the creativity in the original manga.
Yeah, totally.
Anime. And that stuff kind of bled over into like what kind of feels like a mediocre James Cameron movie for me. And it definitely elevated that. I compare this movie a lot to Ready Player One. Well, obviously just because of the heavy use of CGI, but
it's a big creator.
I think what elevated this a little bit more than Ready Player One for me was a lot of the stuff from the manga and the IP that bled into the story and made the story a little bit more interesting than generic action movie plot. So yeah, I think the IP. I'm getting more curious in the IP, and I'm actually getting more curious in the actual story of Alita. But the movie itself feels a bit like James Cameron jumping up and down on like an industrial-sized dumpster of source material, just trying to cram as much as he can into like 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Beginning starts off, and it's not really much of like an anime at all. It's kind of like generic dystopian movie at first. And it just feels dystopian. It feels very Spielbergian kind of. It does not feel like an anime until Christoph Waltz is in like a Gestapo uniform with a giant fucking hammer battling like androids. Then there's like 20 minutes in the movie, it just instantly like he opens up a suitcase and it's like him opening the suitcase is like opening anime and releasing it into the movie, and then the movie gets extremely anime from there on out, like immediately, which is fine. I'm not a huge fan of anime, but I could buckle down in it for this movie. I think one of the big issues that I thought I was going to have with this movie is, and one again that I had with Ready Player One, is the main character being that sort of like completely animated character in a live action setting.
Yeah.
But I actually got over that pretty quickly. They do a good job, especially in the introductory scene. You see her and it's like really weird, and then after that scene, you kind of can buckle in and believe her as a character, and she feels real. And that was a huge hurdle for me to overcome, and I got to give the movie props for helping me out with that. But that does kind of make it a little frustrating later when other more cliche mistakes and mistakes that people have been making for a while now, especially with expanded universe movies, bled in. And I like jumped over that hurdle in the beginning of that anime character with the big eyes, and then only to get jettisoned out by other generic movie problems that you would see in like other James Cameron productions and stuff like that. But you wanted to talk about the eyes, right?
Oh, yeah. So, well, yeah, first of all, I do want to agree. Yeah, she looks great. If she didn't work, like, the movie would have just been an embarrassing, like, it would have been a waste of time.
Yeah, and Ready Player One didn't work for me. Like, I guess she was probably, like, one pair of cat ears away from just being like, oh, God, I want to watch this. But, like, Ready Player One, when he's that little, like, elf character the whole movie, I freaking hated it, dude. I hated it.
But at least they're in a fake world, so like she's supposed to be real in this, you know?
Yeah, I guess. But at the same time, that makes it more impressive that I bought into this character and not the one in Ready Player One.
Yeah, no, the effects overall are great in this. But yeah, so I looked that up and I was like, is that like, does she have big eyes in the manga? And I was like, yeah, because it's a manga. But like, are her eyes any bigger than anybody else's eyes? And apparently, no. Like, that's not, like, a trait of hers that's, like, really important. And maybe I'm wrong, but what I looked up seemed to suggest that James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez decided to make her eyes bigger to accentuate the fact that she is not human and that she is a robot in the movie. And in the book, I guess they cyborgs look more like people and it's not weird. But yeah, I found that interesting because I was like, that had to have been... Making her fully CGI is, like... had to have raised the budget an incredible amount that's not really that necessary.
Yeah, it had to be a lot. Like, a lot. I don't know. I'm guessing that's like $20 million. Because she's in every scene of the damn movie. Almost.
Yeah, and...
almost every frame of the movie, really. And it's just like...
I've looked up, like, the original actress, and I watched, like, a little interview with her. Like, she could have done it. I don't know why. That's a weird choice to put that much money into. I think it works fine. But... as an executive or something, I'd be like, well, what if you just didn't do this, and then you could save like a ridiculous amount of money on this movie, which is an untested property as is. But another change, which segues into the beginning of the movie as well, is the setting of the movie. In the manga, apparently, in this little interview I watched with Robert Rodriguez, it was original. He compared it to Kansas City. It's like middle American, climate. He said it was really boring.
Well, that's one thing Ready Player One did a lot better than.
Yeah.
They were comparing and tit for tat like that.
It was like a boring city. And they decided to move it to,
Johannesburg?
Panama kind of area. And he was like, with that came a lot more color. I mean, the manga's black and white anyway, but he was like, that introduced a lot of color to the movie, and it made it less of the city's less of a place you just straight up don't want to be, which is kind of the point of the movie, but it's still kind of beautiful in its own way, which is kind
definitely
of...
something I want to talk about at some point, too. Let's talk about the city. Right off the bat, so we step outside, and... their background in this movie, the background actors, when you get out, you see a few wide shots of the set and the scenery when they're kind of introducing the city. It's something about the background, the way their wardrobes department, they did a terrible job. And I'm looking at these background actors, and it's this is supposed to be dystopian, I guess, not completely apocalyptic, but kind of generically. But I'm seeing these people with white t-shirts. There's a guy on a Segway when she first walks out in a white t-shirt and khaki pants that are obviously freshly ironed and freshly out of the
vaping.
Trailer. Yeah, no, and then you see a bunch of other background that all look so wardrobe usually uses really cheap clothes that they get from discount places because they have to dress a ton of people.
Mm.
And it really shows in this movie, and it was so jarring every time you saw background actors, especially juxtaposed with principals. I think there was in the bar scene where there was a bunch of principal actors and people covered in CGI and people who are part cyborgs, and then you see some schlubby guy in a leather jacket from Burlington Coat Factory next to him, and it's that's a fucking extra who's getting paid minimum wage, and you see this all of the time every time they cross, and it's just
you just walk down the
frame
set
a lot, and and they're all dolled up, their hair is all done by a makeup artist in the trailer, so it's it looks good but not great. I don't know if I'm explaining this completely properly, but it's very artificial looking. But that's just with the background actors. It's kind of a minor complaint, but I definitely did notice it right off the bat. I was still able to buckle into the city a little bit, but while we're talking about the city, it doesn't seem that bad, which I kind of thought was cool, but I'm not really sure if that was the intention.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said about the city being it doesn't seem like a city you want to escape. It doesn't really. It doesn't seem that awful. Aside from some of the dingy night scenes, it seems pretty chill. There's stuff to do. It doesn't seem that it seems futuristic, but not really dystopian.
Yeah, not the greatest, but especially through her eyes, she just loves it.
Yeah,
and you're
so
seeing it through her eyes, so you're kind of well, it is kind of cool. I mean.
Yeah, it's kind of fun running around this place, and it's kind of fun seeing these people get new robot parts and shit like that.
Oh my god. So when can I go off about that?
We might as well just do it now. We're setting up the whole universe. Let's do it. This is definitely one of the most interesting parts of the movie.
The best thing about this movie is the currency of body parts. I think it's the coolest thing in this movie, and I was just had a smile on my face anytime it was somebody was just stealing somebody's arm, or somebody upgraded their body to a new body that somebody meshed together out of some other people's body parts and shit like that.
There's this whole economy revolving around upgrading your own body and augmenting yourself. And the rollerblade champions, the guys who are basically celebrities, have these really pimped out awesome bodies with sleek steel. And then construction workers who are barely getting by have big clunky machine arms that are getting messed up and short-circuiting on them and stuff. It's really cool.
I was I also thought in the movie so that those Motorball guys who are crazy looking, they can't have a normal life. I feel those are people who have gotten so much plastic surgery that they look like a weirdo now. It's you've gotten so crazy into this lifestyle of this economy of body parts and stuff like that now you're a spider human, this kind of thing. It's what the hell? It's this is so weird, and I don't know. I loved that shit, and that's the once it started getting more into that, getting into the middle of the movie, I was I like this a lot. I don't know. I got really pumped.
There's the way they frame all the main characters is really interesting, that concept, because you have Ito, played by Christoph Waltz, who's basically the most German man ever. and he just like collects and builds body parts, and he does it free. And he used to build the rollerball people, and he's retired. He doesn't want killing anymore. He's a pacifist now, and that's all like crazy interesting and a great place to set up Alita. And then you get these interesting relationships between like her boyfriend, who's a scrapper, and she's a machine. She's fully machine. And then you get is it Sapan? Is that the name of the guy, the hunter warrior with the little goatee and the sword?
Who?
The hunter warrior with the goatee, the Mohawk guy.
Oh,
Pretty boy face. Is it Sapan, I think?
I don't remember. But yeah, he was pretty good. I liked him.
But there's this interesting relationships going on with all these characters where it's like almost like Blade Runner-esque. We have these like questions about like not really questions, but these like thematics of a creator and a person who's being augmented into a machine, and this person who is a full machine but is like trying to be live a human life, and then a person who's trying to have a relationship with a machine who is a person who scraps machines and robs machines and sells them for profit. It's very interesting in that sense. But I guess we should jump over to I want to talk
about one thing in the beginning. Actually, this was like the most. It took me out of the movie how weirdly shot this like one set of sequences were, just because it was like cheesy, and it's the setup of like the mystery of like, is Ito the murderer guy?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, I
saw the double twist coming.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna assume he's not the murderer guy, because that would be awful. The way they're just doing this, and it's like, oh, his arm is bleeding. I'm like, you just came into the world and you heard about this murderer. Like, there could be thousands of them. You don't even know. And then you see the one person you know has a bloody arm, and that makes you think like he must be the one murderer you've heard of since you've started remembering things again. Okay. But then it turns out that he is, but that he's not. And I was just like, what? I don't know. It turned out to be cool.
It was really corny.
It turned out to be
corny, and it was.
It was shot like an old 40s horror movie or something. It was weird, but it had a cool payoff. So I was like, I'm fine, because he had a fucking rocket hammer. So what do you think of
the rocket sledge?
What do you think of the rocket hammer?
This is one of the things where it's like I watch anime and I'm like, why does it have to be like 10 feet tall? Like, why can't it just be a fucking, like, you watch these anime shows and movies and you see the video games, and it's like, why does the sword have to be the size of like a sailboat sail? Why can't it just be a normal size sword? And I just don't get it. I can buckle in and I can get over it. It's fine. For this movie, I can get over it. If I can get over it for Dark Souls, I can push it aside for other good narratives and stuff like that. But it's just like, why? Just fucking why? Is it just that like elementary like power fantasy kind of thing? Is there something more to it than that? I don't know.
So in that little interview I watched with Robert Rodriguez, he talked about
giant hammers,
the rocket hammer. He was like, and it's kind of interesting how
this is the same guy who put a fucking M16 with a grenade launcher on a chick's legs.
I know, and it's like an interesting comparison between James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez, because what he was saying was like, it showed pictures from the manga of the rocket hammer, and it looks almost the same. And he was like, oh, I fucking love the rocket hammer. Let's put it in the movie. Like, that's badass. And James Cameron was like, wait, we need to figure out if this thing is even possible first. Like, James Cameron
would.
Robert Rodriguez described it as like James Cameron is obsessed with like, if there's any technology in his movies, it has to be based in some way in actual like engineering or something. And Robert Rodriguez was like, I don't give a shit.
That's a terrible combination of director and producer then.
He was like, I don't give a shit. I will do whatever and it'll just be like some whimsical fun. But James Cameron was like, we need to figure out if this rocket hammer is like based at all in reality, or else we're gonna change it to something else. And I was like,
James Cameron like gets in a submarine and goes to the bottom of the ocean to find like rocket hammer evidence.
Yeah, I feel like he built one. He was like, it works. It's like, how do you know? It's like, just trust me, all right?
That's where like $80 million of the budget went, is designing a fucking new military weapon.
I feel like he would make this movie just so he could.
Martin is just like rejects it,
just so he could experiment with rocket hammers and stuff like that. But yeah, I thought that was just an interesting look into James Cameron's brain, because he's a really fascinating person to me.
He's very into the tech. You watch all the behind-the-scenes Titanic stuff with him, like, taking submersive subs and shit like that. He's really into that kind of stuff. Maybe a little too much, but that is a very weird combo. I never thought about that as a relationship between Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron, where it's like, that feels like two people who maybe shouldn't be working together, but they did, and I guess it's fine.
So yeah, that action sequence is great. You got the spider lady.
It's fun, yeah. It was fun. I
She's
did like the action
weirdly,
sequences of them jumping around.
she's weirdly like in a lot of promotional material and stuff for being.
Which I like. They didn't want to give away a lot of the stuff. Well, it's a good, I guess it was a good fight scene too. She got fucking scythes for hands. It's great.
Yeah, like I remember her, but it's kind of weird that she's only in like a very little part of the movie.
There was another guy there, wasn't there? It was
the big guy.
It was Big Boy, her, and then there's a third one though. There's like a dude who had
yeah.
What did he have? Did he have like toxic spray or something like that?
I don't know. I love all the robots and shit, man. I love all the robots. They're so they each have like some cool something about them.
I like the idea of the robots, but I do wish the designs were a little more inspired. They did feel a little generic, especially with the rollerblade competitors. It's just
like what do you have to live for as a thing like that? Like the Motorball people, I was just like, all right, you could win Motorball. You're gonna go up to the city and be like a fucking weirdo? I guess you could augment yourself when you're up there to be a more normal looking thing after you've been.
That is one weird thing also, because the rollerblade champions are all like they're like humans and they're like, you know, like celebs and they're super augmented, yeah, but they're like, you know, they look like normal people and stuff like that. They got faces, and then Alita gets in there and it's like, I have a fucking like rock crusher for legs. It's like, what?
Well, her heart is like, I don't know. I mean, I don't really care. This is all just like me talking.
This is definitely I don't care.
Well, this is just talking about the universe just as a person who liked it, bought into it, and everything. I'm just like, what is in this heart that actually makes you so powerful? I don't know. Like, could you not? Yeah, well, her heart, like what is so special about it? This Mars?
Like oh no, it's like an antimatter generator or something.
Oh well, the Mars.
It was lost technology.
The Mars stuff.
Well,
that's a whole.
Let me segue into the Mars stuff.
Yeah, that's a whole.
I do want to talk about. I want to talk about two big cliches in this movie. The first is the overall theme of the movie, which is the city in the sky. What do they call it again? I should have fucking looked up all these anime names before coming back into this. You get the Metropolis city. You get Elysium. You get whatever. It's this cliche trope of dystopian sci-fi with the upper class and then the lower class, literally played out on a visual level. Century-old cliche. Goes back to Metropolis. But you know what? It's a cliche I'm completely fine with. It's been used so many times, but if you do interesting stuff within that cliche, within that narrative, and build upon that, it can be interesting, and I totally am okay with it being the backdrop story for your dystopian sci-fi. Mm-hmm. I'm completely fine with it. One thing animes do rather well is they'll take cliches that have kind of been what people feel have been beaten to death, and they'll find new ways to kind of mix other elements in there and make them a little more interesting, i.e. the economy of body parts and like the rollerball kind of warfare stuff in the lower class in this IP, which is very interesting, and that adds to that cliche and makes the framework digestible rather than a movie like Elysium where it's just like, I'm poor and I need to get up in the big place.
Yeah.
The second cliche I want to talk about is Alita as a method or a character tool that you can just dump exposition on. It's a character has amnesia, or they don't have any memory, or they wake up and then it's like, what world am I in? And then another character is just like, oh, here's the world that we're in, and explains it to them. Again, it's a cliche that I'm completely fine with. I think it's actually one of the better ways to do exposition in movies, and with a movie like this, they do it fine and it's well. So I'm okay with both those. My problem with the exposition cliche is that if you're going to use that cliche, fucking use it. What this movie doesn't do, it doesn't set up that Earth was invaded by Mars. They talk about the fall, and that's kind of interesting. It's like the fall, and they don't really go into details with it. And at first I was like, oh, that's fine. It's like the fall. The movie's kind of being smart. There was an apocalyptic event. Doesn't really matter what it was. You know, wars, economy stabilized globally, all this stuff. And now we're back on track a little bit, but everything's a little askew. They didn't need to go into details with it, and that's what I thought it was. But that's not actually what it was. There was an invasion from Mars. And they didn't explain that until like an hour into the movie. And I'm sitting there, and they're like, oh, look, yeah, it's a Mars starship fighter that when they invaded the fucking world. And you're like, wait, what?
They do.
So if you're going to use these cliches, like, use them right.
Yeah, they do. They do reveal information very strangely in this movie, like sprinkled throughout. Especially at the end, like at the very end, when Ito reveals that he used to live in the Sky City, whatever. I was like, why are you doing
They
this now?
revealed that earlier. They revealed that pretty early, dude. I think the first time they see Jennifer Connelly, they reveal it.
I don't know. I felt like it. Well,
I guess before we continue on, let's talk about the kid, the boy.
Yes. What's his name? Hugo or something? So
Hugo Stiglitz.
I thought overall for his type of role, he did an alright job. I know you don't like him very much, but
I don't think anyone likes him very much.
I thought he did fine. That is like a thankless role.
As an actor, you mean as an actor or the character?
An actor for the character, like that. The character is written is.
And how about the character itself?
It's a boring role. It's like only going to be lame, and he made it like I didn't hate him, which I usually would hate that kind of character, and instead I was just like, I mean, whatever. I don't know. He's fine. I don't know, but he's introduced weird. Like at the beginning, it kind of just gets kind of creepy because like he's got this girl.
He's older. He's like he looks like he's like a decade older than Alita. She looks like she's 14. And it's 13 the whole movie.
Yeah, and it's not even that she's younger.
Not even like 17 or like on the cusp of like womanhood. Like she's like fucking 12 to 14.
Yeah,
and he's an actor who's obviously in his mid 20s.
And she doesn't know anything, and I'm like, this feels bad,
predatory.
Like you shouldn't try to be hooking up with some girl that you just taught her what chocolate was. Like that's creepy and weird. And it's also like her amnesia is weird to me because I'm like, she seems to adjust to everything very well. Like she knows everything, kind of, and then she just doesn't know what like an orange is. But then she's like,
she's programmed. I mean, she's programmed. I don't know. It's fine. She's a robot.
Yeah.
She's a cyborg. Whatever. It's amnesia. It's basically like time travel in movies. Like, fuck it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a minor problem, but I was just like... But it did add to the creepiness. Like, later on in the movie, like, midway through, when they have, like, this romantic scene, they're, like, walking across a bridge or something. And he's like... I put it in my notes. He's like, you're the most human
thing I know.
Yeah, you're the most human person I know. And I was like, really? Like... When you met her, she didn't know anything, and I don't know. She's just
sappy and crappy.
She just ripped her heart out, literally. That scene wasn't.
Let me go on my spiel about it because you kind of blitz forward ahead of me. He gets introduced, and it's like he's fucking like CVS brand James Dean. He's on like a motorcycle. I don't know. And the first scene you see the actor in, as an actor. He ends up doing fine in the movie, but the first scene he's in, I guess it might just be because he's dealing with someone in mocap or like a bunch of blue screening and green screening or whatever. But the first scene you see him in, he's fucking terrible at acting. His acting is terrible in it, and it doesn't help sell the character off the bat at all. And he has a line, and the line is almost exactly the Star Wars Luke Skywalker, I'm going to go into Tosche Station pick up some power converters line. He has a line where it's like, I'm going to go down to fictional location to pick up sci-fi tech item. And he says it, and it's terrible. And again, you could put that line of dialogue from him right next to the Luke Skywalker line. They're both absurd. One of them is a actor actually trying to, like, actually believing in the universe that the script is creating. And the other one is some dude who's probably just there for a paycheck and, like, get his name on IMDb. Like, off the bat was like, this is fucking bad. And... I guess it got better. I will say it got better. But the whole time, it feels like this really, really, really YA relationship between them.
Oh, yeah.
Young adult, like...
That's
inappropriate for this movie, like, tonally.
That's basically what I'm saying in this, like, the thankless role of that type of character is, yeah, like the very YA type. He's just gonna be some dude that maybe something bad's gonna happen to him, like, whatever. But he was likable as the movie went on. I was like, I don't hate when he's around, which I usually would. So, yeah.
He was always a bit of a wanker for me, but he did, there's one scene with the relationship I liked. There's one scene.
When his head
and it's a scene when... The what?
When his head is just, like, in a jacket.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. No, the one scene I like is when, the scene when she, like, gives him his heart.
Yeah.
Because that's the only scene where it feels like they have an actual, like, dynamic relationship. The rest of the time, it's this like terrible YA relationship. And that scene, it's actually like she's sitting there staring at him while she's sleeping because she's like an android. She doesn't know anything about like culture or how people act around each other and stuff like that. And she's weird and naive in that scene, and it's cute, but it's also kind of she's being a little creepy. And he's like kind of charmed, but kind of weirded out at the same time. He's like, Alita, oh, you're here. You're being a little weird, but it's cute. And then she like gives her heart to him, which is at that point it's interesting because it's been set up that he is trying to get. I think they've specifically said in the dialogue before that we need to get her heart. So it's interesting to see that after. And then there's a moment. I kind of wish they played up the temptation of him wanting to take the heart a little bit more. Instead, like I wish there was like a kind of like a like Boromir in Lord of the Rings where he's like staring at it and it's like boom. But instead he's just kind of like, Alita, you're being silly. Put it back in your chest. I wish they played up that tension a little bit, but that scene is this only scene in the movie where it feels like they have an actual relationship. Other than that, it's kind of complete crap.
I liked that. I like that. That's basically what comes to mind when I'm thinking of like him being good and them working a little bit in the movie. This movie has some cheesy things like that scene that I like, even though it's so like easy for them to make her heart valuable, and then she's literally giving her heart to him. I was like, that's
it's
so
cheesy, but
it's
works.
cheesy, but I'm like, I was like, that's kind of clever in the fact that I didn't see that scene coming, and then you wrote it, and it's like it works really well. But yeah, at that part of the movie, I was very confused. His motivations at part, which I guess might have been the point. But when he was good still, I was like, didn't you sell her out? I thought maybe he like completely sold her out and was just taking advantage of it.
Yeah, his whole character is a little muddled, especially with that idea of him as a scrapper and like who he's gonna pledge allegiance to. They could have definitely done that better. Where I was talking about the tension of, is he gonna take her heart and like sell her out? They could have played that tension up a little bit better throughout the whole movie and paced it out a bit better. That's a huge issue with this movie for me is pacing too, especially after certain points. Let's jump back a little bit to the Mars and the city. When they leave the city, we're talking about the city not really being a dystopian that much at all. They go out and it's like fucking beautiful outside. It's like Hawaii outside.
Yeah, why don't you just expand?
And woods, and it's like, why wouldn't you just live there? So it looked like there's like a big force field around the city, and it's like, okay, maybe there's an atmosphere problem. And then I was like, I saw some farmlands around the city. I was like, maybe it's like the air is so dry that they're spraying water into the air around the edges of the city to like keep it moist enough for people to like live without their skin drying out or something. Then I realized that wasn't the case at all, and there's farms out there, and they just go and hang out and like swim in the waterfall. And I was like, fucking really?
Yeah.
Like, how are you gonna try and sell it? Like, why are there not people living out here? This is like beautiful. Maybe there are in the manga. Maybe later there's like tribal people living there. Like, I don't know.
Why not just normal people? Why don't you open up like a gated community out there? It's beautiful.
Sell some sugarcane drinks out there, you know.
It's fucking it's like
a travel resort.
Is this the only city? Like, I know that's the only Sky City, but fuck a Sky City. You can't even get up there. Why do you care so much? Like, why don't you?
I know, like nothing's that bad. Why do you want to go up to the shitty Sky City?
They're shitty.
I bet you $30
They're assholes.
There's not even anyone up there.
They won't let you get up there. Why don't you just leave? Make a new cool city. I don't know. Yeah, that did get kind of weird when they went out.
That part is really when the movie started. I started to turn on the movie. Because that's also the part when they drop the information of like, then there's a fucking Martian invasion. And I was like, what? So you get outside the city and you're like, well, why are they in this little crammed city? Also, when you see the outside of the city, it doesn't look anywhere, like, in that shot when they're driving past out of the farmland, the city looks about like the size that you see the rollerblade arena later. Like, the rollerblade arena is like massive. And then when you see the city from the outside, it doesn't even look that big.
Well,
it looks big, don't get me wrong, but not that big.
It would make sense for it to be really small, because one of my problems with the movie that kind of took me out of the movie was just, it seems like there's only like 12 people in this whole fucking city. Every character bumps into each other and is related to each other in a way that is so like small seeming. There's no just random character that pops up. There's no, it just feels very contained, which I didn't like hate. I was like, I kind of like, you're trimming all the fat and stuff, but it's supposed to be like this big city, and it's like everybody knows each other, everybody sees each other all the time, everybody knows each other by name. It just kind of felt very like small. I
get what you're saying, and a lot of movies are commit that crime. A lot of movies do that, especially with bigger city movies. But I will say that I didn't I agree with you a little bit, but I don't know. I've seen it a lot worse in a lot of other movies. One of my big complaints about Black Panther was the city of Wakanda just feeling like a series of rooms. And I don't know. I watched this movie. I'm like, it's fine. I get a little bit more. There's just enough in there for me to make me believe that this is expansive. And by just enough, there's like the dude with the dog, like, just throwing in that random side character. And
yeah, that guy was fucking great.
Little touches like that highlight the movie. When we talk about fucking monologuing Crab Man and Aquaman, it's like Dog Man. He's the fucking guy in this movie who's just like, that guy's great.
Yeah, I like they had a bunch of robot dogs and then just like that little dog.
Pretty good one.
Yeah, and so when the dog was introduced, I was like paying attention. I was like, why is this dog here? Is it just to introduce like her, that she's sweet, but she'll go into danger to save something,
Yeah, it felt a little hammy.
So I wanted to bring this up because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, but one of my friends introduced me to doesthedogdie.com.
Oh yeah, no, this is
that dog does like, it doesn't show anything, but you were like, Jesus fucking Christ. I guess because they picked the smallest dog in the world and like the most violent robot appendage.
Boo the dog.
Yeah, it was pretty. It's pretty good.
You know what I did like is how they used the dog right before that scene as a comedic moment when she's like trying to act all tough and then she sees the dog. She's like, "Oh, hello." That was really cute to me. I was like, I like that more than the first scene when she introduced the dog and saves it and all that corny crap. But yeah, the little dog. You know what is really weird to me? Other people have pointed out too is the poster with her with her little like battle makeup. That's dog blood.
Yeah, I was like...
It's a little strange.
When that happened in the movie, I was like, I guess must be like an iconic scene from the manga or something. And maybe it's less weird because she's a robot or something. And maybe she obviously doesn't know a lot.
She doesn't know about blood diseases.
Yeah, but watching it, I was just like, that's weird. Yeah, that's a weird thing to do. Like, that's not cool or badass or anything. It's just like...
You have with like your own blood or like the blood of your enemies or something. Not dog blood, I don't
know. Yeah, it's a little tiny dog that you liked. But I bet that whole scene is just... Or that part was just because it's a big deal in the anime or manga or something. That's what I got out of it. Sure. The bar scene's great.
It's pretty good.
When I was watching it, I was like, every futuristic, dystopian future movie should have a bar scene. It's just...
yes. I would say that is the peak of the movie right there for me, is that scene. I really like Sapan, or whatever the guy with the sword and the Mohawk's name actually is. I really like his character. I really like his relationship. Like I said, that triangle with Alita being a full cyborg and a hunter warrior, him being part human, part cyborg, heavily augmented human and a hunter warrior, and then Alita's boyfriend being a scrapper, full human, in a relationship with a full cyborg, being hunted by this half cyborg hunter warrior man. It's this very interesting like little web of kind of like identities between these characters.
And I liked,
even if one of the characters completely sucks, it's still interesting.
Yeah, I liked that he was like obviously like an antagonist, but I didn't ever like completely dislike him. I kind of thought he's
a soft antagonist. I love those characters in movies. They're always so interesting.
Yeah, like I didn't... If things turned out like okay for him, like I wasn't mad because I kind of respected him. I didn't think he was like a shitty person. He was kind of just like he was playing by his own rules and stuff like that. If this gets a sequel, I'm excited to see him in the next movie when his face is fucked up. Like that's great, you know. Great. He was a cool character. He could have been. I don't know. I actually like how much he's in the movie. I want to say he should be in it more. But then he might become like the main sort of antagonist, and I don't think
I actually have a little theory about that I do want to talk about, especially when it comes to structure of the movie.
I don't think they did well with the main antagonist, which is Mahershala Ali. I love him in this movie because he's the most blatantly anime character to me, in the way that
he felt very Matrix, but I guess Matrix is inspired by anime, so
yeah, like his look and just how over the top he was. I was like, this should be drawn.
I thought it was completely him and Jennifer Connelly. I thought they were just completely wasted characters. Mahershala Ali has like 3 lines of dialogue before he just gets taken over by Nova, and I guess that's obviously supposed to be the part of the character too, is having like the split personalities. I don't know. Nova to me is just so lame. I know you like his little tiny glasses, but been done so many times before.
We'll get to that, because that's why I think I walked out of the movie just so happy. But yeah, Mahershala Ali, great actor. Literally just won an Oscar last night. We're recording right after the Oscars. I think it felt like he was having fun in this movie, and I kind of wish they let him have a little more fun and be more of a character and not just getting taken over by another character. So obviously they have Ed Norton gonna be the villain in the next movie, and he probably has already prepared like his take on this villain. I wonder if he did like some screen tests of lines and then had Mahershala Ali act like how he's going to act in the next movie for those scenes. I was like, that would be a smart way to do it.
No.
So, but then you could have just like, why would Mahershala Ali act like this when in the next movie Ed Norton acts like completely different? You know what I mean?
Well, Ed Norton just acts like a stiff. That's all his character is. It's just...
Well, he doesn't do anything.
Omnipotent overseer. Yeah, he doesn't do anything. That's because he just talks. He's just a stiff. He's just the omnipotent overseer. I really did not... I think that was honestly one of the big weak points, is like the big threat that Mahershala Ali's character, who was more interesting, shaking at his knees and like being taken over by like generic man who can't even fucking pinpoint Ito's house, even though Ito is like the most famous man in the city because he's giving everyone free robot parts and used to build rollerblade racers. For some reason, they're just hanging out in his house, and this guy who apparently sees all can't just fucking show up to the house.
And it seems like Jennifer Connelly probably used to live there.
Yeah, Jennifer Connelly. Seriously though, Jennifer Connelly walks there in like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
It's like, hi, I used to live here. Also,
he works for the factories that are owned by Nova that supply the upper city.
There's only 12 people in the city. Like, find this guy, kill him. Just break into his house, man. Like,
yeah, that crackhead broke into your house and killed his daughter earlier. Why can't you just do that again?
All
just
right.
go send an army.
So, weird daughter thing. Fucking, it's weird to name your adopted amnesiac daughter after your daughter. Like, when it revealed that...
It's obviously like a coping mechanism, and I like how the movie explores that with Ito. I really hated the scene when his daughter died, the flashback to it.
Yeah.
Unnecessary, really bad looking, I think poorly directed, and just ridiculous, honestly. We get it. You named her after our daughter. It's like, we get it. Your daughter died. You don't need to have the flashback and show some roided up dude with his face plastered onto a robot.
I thought her original body was super cool.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Like, it looked like it was like
ivory,
pearl. Like ivory. It was really cool, and it
looked great.
It had like great like engravings everywhere. It was cool.
It felt very tactful. It felt real. There's a lot of things people complain about with watching CG movies. It doesn't feel real when you see them. They don't feel weighted. They don't feel like they have a texture to them. They don't feel grounded in reality. And they did a good job of nailing that with Alita's bot. Talking about the Mars suit.
And when she gets the suit, she's old now.
Oh yeah. The nurse looks at Christoph Waltz and is like, "Looks like she's older than you thought. Age of consent."
Yeah, I was like,
fucking breasts like get a cut bigger.
And then she's
like, oh my god, this is one of those things. Is like you wonder why people make fun of fucking anime, and it's just. Ugh.
And then she's just walking around the house like robot naked, and I'm like, this is basically your dad. I don't know. It was a weird couple moments in there where I was just like, where is this gonna go? I mean, great for fucking Hugo or whatever his name is. He's like, oh, I wanted to fuck you anyway, back when you were like 13 or whatever the hell. And he's like, oh,
body. Now you're in a 14-year-old's body.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm just 300 years old, you guys. It's fine, he's 300 years old.
It's like, this is weird. And I don't know how that works anyway. They never really explain, like, how any of that works. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Like,
none of it matters.
None of it matters, but it's like, it's gonna come up in this universe at some point. Like, come on, Hugo. Maybe his friend was just like, bro, like, you're wasting your time. Like,
yeah. The guy who got stabbed by Sapan is just like, bro, what are you doing?
This is weird, man.
He says some line like, oh, you're into fake girls now or something like that.
Maybe he was just trying to be like protective or like, hey, this is
you know what it really is? It is, no, he loved her. That's what it is, but you know.
Yeah.
But we know how teenage boys actually are, so.
So, Jennifer Connelly is in this movie. She's, I don't know, I wish they gave her more, but her ending is great.
Which I want to say, I was really bucked out of the movie by this point with the pacing and all, and I was really kind of like rolling my eyes. I went and took a piss, and I completely missed this, and you had to tell me about it. So why don't you go ahead and tell me about what seems to be one of your favorite parts of the movie?
Yeah, and I feel like when you actually watch it, you're going to be like, that was it? Because it's just like a split-second image. But it's at the end, she goes and she confronts Mahershala Ali. And
I walked out while they were talking because I was like, oh, she's fucking dead. Like, okay, I get it.
You missed it. It was like right there. He goes, confronts him there, and he's like, oh, like, she saved you or something. And it's like, he just opens up some box, and you just see like this box full of liquid, and there's just a brain and like her eyeballs just floating in it. And it's like, there's only one way you get to whatever the city's name is, and it's in this box or whatever. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I love this shit. This is
Wait. He said there's only one way to the upper city, and it's in that box?
I don't think he says like it's in this box, but he makes it seem like there's only one way, and it's like you become a fucking brain, and like you get used by Nova up there. So she... Sure. And this is right after... You see, the boy's head gets put on a robot.
Let's talk about that fucking part. Maybe we should rewind to the rollerball and then work up to that.
Yes, because it all leads up. You're right.
So Rollerball, I was really excited for. Honestly, I was a little underwhelmed by it.
Murderball, I loved it.
My big issue was that the whole movie, the trailers kind of sell the movie on this point of this big rollerball fucking challenge. And they're working up to it, like this whole movie and building towards it. And then, like, right fucking before it's about to start, she gets, like, a cell phone call in her head, which they haven't used as a plot device or a narrative device to move the narrative at all anywhere before in this movie. They just then use it and are like, hey, Alita, there's something going on in another scene. We need you to get off the rollerball court and go over there. And I'm like, come on, fucking seriously? I want to fucking enjoy this. And the second the roller race starts, it's just like... Let's see how fast we can get out of here.
I don't know. That didn't mind me. That didn't bother me that much.
That fucking bugged me a lot. Because then it immediately felt like everything in the rollerball race was irrelevant. And another thing that irked me was that there was that one girl from the bar there, Screwhead or whatever they called her. They made a good point of mentioning that character and pointing her out. They gave her like a close-up and everything, and you see her a lot in the bar. Then she's like immediately in the race the next day or whatever within the same week. And you see the same character, and Alita sees her on the track and doesn't recognize her. And I'm like, I recognize her. I recognize this crappy fucking cyborg. How does she not recognize her? It makes her seem a little stupid. When, like, Christoph Waltz calls her and is like, these are hired assassins, and she's like, oh? Because it's like, yeah, you just saw that girl in the bar the other day.
Well, I mean, she could have been in the bar, and... I mean,
They say her name, she's like, this here screwball over here has been... Hunter Warrior for 10 years. They point her out.
Yeah, but like a Hunter Warrior is not going to go out of her way to kill Alita. Hunter Warriors are killing bad guys.
Yeah,
they're
but
like bounty
seeing
hunters.
her on the rollerblade arena is like...
Alita's wanted for just like dirty money. So she wouldn't necessarily know that she just wanted this like dirty money for this hit job.
But she knows, I don't know, she knows she's like a target at that point. I feel like it was just a bit silly. But yeah, the whole thing of them rushing off the court as soon as possible to go save uninteresting generic love boy kind of sucked the fun out of the roller race for me.
But it was great though. Like it was shot. Well, it's hard to even say shot when it's like mostly CG, almost all CG. But like that part especially, and all the action in the movie was great. I would say in the way
I didn't really care for the. I liked the action in some of the bar parts. I didn't like the action at the in the roller arena. In my opinion, was probably the worst action scene in terms of like choreography and like what happens in it.
I never lost. Like I was afraid it was going to be like a Transformers situation, and you kind of it's a bunch of just shit flashing on screen, and you see different pieces of characters, and you're not really sure what's going on.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's like I could follow it the whole time, and it was really cool, especially when she gets out of it. Actually, she's like going through the city. That was pretty fun. Yeah, I just thought it was a well like put together action sequence. It didn't disappoint me very much. But yeah, then you get to the weird...
Do you remember why she was rollerblading, though? Do you remember why she rollerbladed or went to the Death Ball, whatever, arena?
Because... Oh, wasn't it to, like, win money for him?
Yeah, the scene before it was the scene when They literally set up her reason to go to the arena in the scene before, when she gives him the heart, and he's like, I need $1 million and I can go up to the heaven, even though we've heard like 8 fucking times it's like, you never go up there. And that kid just seems like the biggest dumbass, continuously being like, oh, I just need like $20 more. And
you confront me some money, bro.
Yeah, it was frustrating at that point because they say it so many times. And then Mahershala Ali Vector is like talking to him, and he's like, if you give me Alita's heart or something like that, he's like, you can get up. And then the next scene, he's just like, yeah, I just need some cash. And then she's like, okay, I'll go to the rollerblade for you. And they set it up too quickly, and it felt like they slapped that in there really quick. And then they immediately, after slapping it in there, she goes there to get money for him to go to buy his way into the Heaven's Gate.
Is it not hard to get into Murderball? Yeah, it's the only way to get up to this Sky City, whatever. And
apparently not, though. And
yeah, I guess you just signed up and she just got in. But
I believe that they take anyone, and that a lot of people will go in and try and just get their brains smeared all over the concrete and everyone claps.
Yeah.
So I can believe that.
I don't really understand.
Yeah, they set up that scene, the scene before, I need some cash. She's like, all right. And then the next scene, she's doing rollerball. She's like, I'm going to get you the cash. And then immediately they're like, no, stop, get out of there. And it's just like, fuck, come on, script. Come on.
I don't know. I didn't mind that. It added a little more, like, tension to the scene instead of her just playing a sport. But I guess it could be like they're trying to kill her and she doesn't realize that they're trying to kill her yet.
But then they escape the advertised scene in the movie, and then they go to the church.
I loved this.
It was interesting little how they're exploiting the Centurions and how he's wanted. You gotta kill him and stuff like that. The head plugged up is just fucking ridiculous. And I guess this is another thing that, like,
loved that.
For anime, for me, where it's just like, again with the big swords, it's just like, this is so stupid. And not stupid in like a fun or cute way, because it's supposed to be really serious in the context of the movie. Like, I'm just like, oh my god. And then they glue him onto a robot body, and I'm getting like this weird flashbacks where it's like a combination of Chappie and Mars Attacks, where they just put his head onto a robot, and it's just the stupidest looking thing ever. And it's so... Maybe I'll learn to laugh at this movie someday and enjoy it in like a it's trash, I love it way. But when I was watching that, I'm like, this is the fucking stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I can't say that I didn't love this bit and completely not it's trash, I love it way. When she came out, I was like, what happened? And she's like got his just head in her jacket. I was like, all right, so it almost made... At that moment, it made me happy that this was just like some cheesy YA relationship for this weird payoff that would never be done in like a Hunger Games or some shit. It's like, oh, she cut off his head and like has his head in a jacket that's connected like to her cyborg body. This has gotten weird now. So fucking bonkers. And then, yeah, they just put his head on a robot body. And I'm like, oh, that worked. Yeah, because of course you could just keep a head alive in a jacket. And
you know what? Yeah, it's like fucking. It's like the Futurama like Museum of Heads. Like,
I just kind of loved it. I was like, what a weird. Like, if you were to pitch this movie to me and be like, all right, what happens at the end with the romance? I'd be like, she cuts off his head and then like hides it in a jacket and then they attach it to another robot body. I was like, whoa, okay, I like this. But then. Okay.
What the fuck are you smoking?
So this is a problem with this movie. This is an actual... When this happened, I was mad. Because I've seen this in another movie recently. And I was like, don't fucking do that. This is like a bad storytelling idea. Which is killing a character twice. I saw
Princess Leia!
I saw it in a movie recently. It was... it's by the Duffer Brothers. It's before they did Stranger Things. And in this movie... This character, one of the main characters, dies, but like off screen. But like there's this whole emotional scene about like, oh, they're gone, and then they come back to die again. And then there's a second emotional scene that's like, oh no, you're dying. And I was like, I don't care now. He's already dead to me. Like, move on. So you need to commit to that. Like, I've already emotionally committed to that. And then. So it seems so easy to get up to this fucking Sky City, too.
Yeah. You know what? One thing that threw me in a loop, and I should have expected this because it's fucking weeb trash, but they talk about the supply ropes earlier, where it's like, oh, that's the tube that sends supplies up. I'm like, they're smuggling on up there later. And I was like, they're going to get in there, and they're going to get on a little cargo thing, and they're going to sneak up to there. And then later, it's like they're just walking on top of it. And of course, it's like, oh, defense mechanism has to be a giant razor blade that goes down the tube. It's the most anime shit ever. And again, with me, it's just like, fucking why? That is so dumb and impractical. And I guess you can say suspension of disbelief and whatever, it's fantasy, whatever, all you want, but it's always this just absurdism of like gargantuan Rube Goldberg-esque thing that just has to be obscenely ridiculous as a plot mechanism. And it feels like kind of like kids playing with toys a little bit. It reminds me of those little toys at the dentist office that are like the little wires with like the little shapes on them, and you slide them around. I feel like someone was playing with that one day. It was like, the razor blade is going to knock you off the tube.
But so my question is,
especially when the flashback with the Mars invasion, where then it's like they're crawling up the tube. It's like, you guys flew here from fucking Mars, and you're walking up a wire up there.
But that part made more sense to me because I was like, okay, this is to defend against these Martians. It's like, that makes sense. But like, do they just run these razor blades if anybody walks up the thing? Are they just looking at... Is Dr. Eggman looking at them all the time? I don't know.
Yeah, he sees everything, except for Dr. Ito's.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, I hope he can see with his fucking tiny-ass glasses, which are great, by the way. This movie utilizes the tiny circle glasses better than any movie I've seen for years now. Mahershala Ali...
Later on 2049 has the best tiny circle glasses.
Oh, and Dave Bautista?
Yeah.
Yeah, he can rock some tiny glasses. That was pretty great.
We're going to start a new Oscar category, by the way. It's tiny circle glasses.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I would have to give it to...
Send us an email, tinysircleglasses@tabunda.com.
I don't know who I would give it to in this movie because Ed Norton's are way tinier. But Mahershala Ali, it looks so... He kind of looks cool in them.
Oh, yeah, he's got the clout.
They look like... his just look in this movie was so anime to me. But yeah, so the razor blade thing, I'm like, is this just to prevent anybody from going up into this city? Is it like a routine, kind of like a wall sort of thing? And then just like anybody who tries to sneak up there gets razor bladed by this thing?
Well, it seems like you need a robot body to do it. One thing I did like is the young dude is like, if I had your body, I'd climb up that rope up to the big city. And then later he gets the body, and he's obviously like super distraught, which I appreciate that he was super distraught because it's like he had his body lost and he had to put his head on a body. I appreciate that he was like completely just like, my life is completely fucked, and he was just like losing his shit. Versus like when you watch Chappie and he puts his conscience into a robot and he's like, okay, let's go, Chappie. You never saw Chappie, did you?
No, I haven't seen it. You're not selling it well.
But
yeah, he did.
I like that he was distraught and hikes up, and then he gets the robot body, so he walks up the tube. But like he said, he was gonna do earlier because he's completely distraught, completely ridiculous looking, like hilariously ridiculous looking. That actor's head, like CGI pasted onto that robot.
So earlier when I said like the reason I love this movie is because when I was watching it, I was like, this is some things I'm never going to see again, and I have never seen before. Him, like a love scene with just a guy's head on a robot body, and then his like most of his body gets chopped off by this razor blade, and he's like dangling there. It doesn't even look good, and I'm glad that it doesn't look good because it's so ridiculous. Like when I was watching it, I was like, this terrible. Looks so fucking terrible. Stupid. But like, if it looked better, it would look worse. If that makes any sense. Like, It accentuated how ridiculous the moment was. It's like a robot cyborg with huge eyes holding onto this guy's hand who's just like a torso and an arm and a head, a real head, just dangling off. I was just like, what is this fucking movie?
I can imagine some like 70-year-old guy who just went in the movie theater and like sat in there by himself and turned this on. I'm just like, oh, what is this? What is happening?
So this scene, okay, for as ridiculous as it is, and I would say this scene borders on it's trash. I love it more so than other parts of the movie. But I think the tension and weird sadness of him falling was actually really well done. It was like it did.
As ridiculous as it looked, I was like, that is a really pathetic and sad death.
Because it's not...
I kind of like how... It was a little bold, I will say.
Yeah, like, usually it's like, there's one last moment of like, no! Like, this was just like, his arm starts ripping, and they're both like, you're not going to make it. And it's just this sad, like, before he falls moment of like, there's not even any hope at all. I don't know. So I like that, because usually moments like that are, a little more...
And you know what else I liked about that? The word I was looking for earlier was bewildered, by the way. He's walking up that tube, he's super bewildered, and he's like, I just want to go. And then when he's hanging there, he actually kind of is like, realizes the gravity of the situation, and he seems like he snaps back as like, wait, Alita, you actually really love me, and I have more to live for even without my body. And then it's like too late, which is, it's pretty romantic and interesting. The scene's still fucking absurd as all hell, but yeah, it's I don't know, you're right, it does have a little bit of emotional impact, even if that emotional impact is like kind of completely counterweighed by it just being one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life.
I know. Yeah, I'll give it credit, like extra credit for so ridiculous. I was just like basically laughing, and then the actual moment of it happening, I was like, oh damn, that's like pretty well done. But
I think they just designed his like body or his head. If you look more like some of the other cyborgs, where it was like his head was a little more integrated with the body and a little more like, I don't know, it was so like, it was like a clone stamp of like his head put onto like a chappy body, and it was just like,
and just the whole time he's like upset. So like he
also doesn't look, he's not a very convincing actor as anyways for me. So like I said, CBS James Dean, he's like 26 playing like a 16-year-old, like he looks like he belongs in like a CBS TV show,
like a Disney Channel original show.
Yeah, like a Disney Channel show, like something like that.
So
I'm your cool boyfriend.
After that moment, the movie never really hits any sort of high. So after that, she goes to Mahershala Ali's office. Oh, no, of course the high of Jennifer Connelly's brain in a goddamn box. So great. But it's just a split second, man. I wish, like, it was...
So how do you think that brain is going to be used? I know people who read the manga probably already know this, but how do you think that brain is going to be used in the future?
I'm like...
How do you think that character is going to come back?
Maybe as a cyborg. I mean, in this universe, obviously, that's probably the obvious answer. I'm like, did you really need to keep her eyes? And they're just like floating in this jar. I really wish I like could see a picture of it. I've tried to Google.
They paid for Jennifer Connelly's eyes and brain. They're gonna use it.
But yeah, I'm like, so I guess she's like a great robot doctor.
Doctor.
But like, do you need to keep the eyes?
Well, how are you gonna perform surgery if you can't fucking see?
I know, but couldn't you get some better robot eyes? Couldn't fucking Nova get some better eyes and take off those fucking glasses?
Maybe that's what they're for. Maybe Nova wants her eyes, so he doesn't have to wear those tiny glasses.
Yeah, he just cuts off the brain and like throws it in a trash can and just takes the eyeballs. Yeah, so the last standoff between Mahershala Ali and Alita is kind of lame.
I don't even remember it, honestly. There's so much after a certain point. I think after his head gets chopped off, there's like these fights. The pacing completely fucking falls to shit after that point, and it's just like thing happening after thing. It's so sporadic, and I really completely fucking lost the movie. Completely lost me at that point. That's when I more or less turned on it. And she's in retrospect, I do appreciate the ridiculousness of the dude's head on the robot body. But at the time, I was like, "This is fucking terrible. What am I watching?"
I
don't remember I don't remember how any of the big bad guys died. I remember just kind of fucking dropping. I don't remember the fights being particularly interesting.
I instantly loved it. But yeah, so she's like talking shit to Mahershala Ali. Mahershala Ali becomes Nova, I believe. And then the big motherfucker comes through the window.
He stabs her, and then when he's dying, he becomes Nova, I think. And he talks to her. It's like,
yeah, so,
that was a little interesting. That was the only time Mahershala Ali as Nova was interesting, because Mahershala Ali is like dying, and his body's in physical pain, and then Nova's just being cold and like using it as a vessel while it's like his last breath.
And yeah, the big motherfucker shows up. I don't know how she...
shows up even though he dies earlier in the movie.
I know.
When Nova takes over his body, and then he died.
It definitely appeared to me like he was dead.
When they had his spine dangling out, and Nova first showed up and then transported into Mahershala Ali, Vector's body, then he leaves his body, and then he croaks, and he goes, and just like his tongue hangs out, and you see some drool come down, and then Jennifer Connelly looks at Nova, and then he's like, he's dead. That character just died when Nova left his body. He's now dead because we didn't need him anymore. And it shows how malice Nova is for disposing his peons. We're valueless to him. And the next scene is back.
They're like, we're never going to find a guy bigger than this motherfucker, so
yeah,
we got to bring this big guy back.
It was weird. It was fucking weird.
I was like, was his head that big when he was a human? Like, there's no human with a head that fucking big.
That character was probably the most anime thing.
So he shows up.
Especially those claws.
Uses his, like, crazy, like, claw arm thing that shoots out. Alita's able to beat it. I don't actually remember how.
I think she uses the sword that she got from the spy.
Oh,
which is
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I like
yeah,
his other
yeah.
artifact. He had like a Mars sword, and she like takes it from him.
And she like kills the shit out of him, and then kills Mahershala Ali, and then I don't remember what happens until she does rollerball again, and then
it ends. It ends when she's getting into the stadium.
she looks up at the Sky City, and then you see Ed Norton as Dr. Robotnik look down and like smile, and I was just like, oh my god, fucking Ed Norton! What a weird role for Ed Norton to pick. I think it's so bizarre. He does not pick
off, yeah.
other than the Hulk, which he's.
I forgot he was the Hulk.
This is the schlockiest, weirdest like choice he's made. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's picked something else I can't remember. But I was like, Edward Norton? I'm fucking in. Alita 2, I will buy my ticket now. I'm pumped. Just to see him be fucking dumb. It's like that he looks so fucking stupid.
I bet you could play it up. We didn't see him act, really, so I bet you could play up and be really interesting.
Oh, yeah. He's great. I want to see him ham it up. Edward Norton doing something
Which could be
stupid.
fun, but as Nova stands in this movie, I think he's fucking trash.
So, alright, so...
As a big threat, he sucks.
So...
He's poses omnipotent, isn't omnipotent, continuously fails, can't see where Ito lives, not a threat, man. And he's very generic. But I get what you're saying, where, yeah, Edward Norton, if that he actually gets to act as that character, it could camp it up and make it fun in the future. But that's not what I got in this movie. And I can't rate this movie off of, like, the second one will be awesome.
Yeah, so...
It's like DLC and video games and shit like that. And it's like when they release, like, games as a live service, and people are like, it'll be good later. Don't complain about it now. It'll be good later.
All right,
and
so...
I can't, like, that ending, I can't justify that. Especially with the pacing towards the ending, you know? I would be fine with a subtle hint. This is, like, so fucking on the nose, it makes Master of the Universe's, like, cliffhanger look subtle.
Yeah, so the major problem with this movie is that it does end with a necessary sequel to even be...
A coherent narrative.
Yeah. But, so I was thinking about this movie, and I thought of a cool, interesting comparison between this and Guardians of the Galaxy. So Guardians of the Galaxy it really could have just been a completely standalone movie, but in that movie...
how it ties into the universe versus it being its own standalone movie? How it does both at the same time?
Yeah.
Guardians?
Yeah, Guardians. So it's got this minor bad guy, and you know there's a bigger bad guy, because Thanos is present throughout Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're dealing with this fucking blue guy. And then at the end... you defeat the bad guy, and it feels cool. It's very self-contained. It has more of a impactful ending than Alita does, because
closure.
You saved a bunch of people. You did a bunch of things. You know what I mean? Because this minor bad guy was a big threat to a lot of people, even though there's a bigger bad guy that's his boss. But at the end, it ends with just this little Dave Bautista's like, my real enemy is Thanos. It's like those two things mainly are like they just set it up right at the end.
Little seasoning to sprinkle in there on your actual story.
Like, what if this never got a sequel? And I like watching Guardians of the Galaxy just standalone, because especially since
I'm sure that was already slated at that point to get a sequel, so a little bit of safe bet.
But it's also got the Marvel movies, so you know it's going to get a sequel.
Did it also cost $200 million to make?
No, but this movie.
It's setting itself up for failure with that budget, man.
It's not a guaranteed sequel at all. And it just kind of, like, it feels less whole to me.
Yeah. It feels like an unfinished narrative. I'm going to go on basically the same rant. I'm going to compare it to Star Wars, though. Fucking pathetic to see directors still coming out with incomplete narratives and open cliffhangers like that, when Star Wars is, like, pushing almost 50 years now. And... like, we've seen how you introduce a movie to set up not just a trilogy but also a franchise, and now we have this, like, Hollywood studios just fucking stumbling over themselves to make these expanded universe, and they can't even get a successful first movie out. You gotta make a cohesive, compact narrative, and you gotta have a proper scale for it that you can build up from. I watched this movie, and they're vomiting everything up right out front. And then the rest of the movies, if you do that, you don't have anything to expand on. You just drag out the stuff you already put forth. if I were to like do Alita myself and write this, make the first movie about Alita being in this world, make it about the seedy underbelly, make it about Sapan and her boyfriend, and have Vector there, but make him more of like the origami guy in Blade Runner, where he's like subtly moving the plot, and then he becomes a more larger character in the next one, and introduce Ego or Nova. I keep going on Ego. But as it stands, it's just they put everything out there, they kill off a bunch of characters and peons, and then they don't even have a complete narrative at the end. They put all this stuff out here and they set all this stuff up, and the payoff's not going to come for another movie that might not even be made. It stinks of James Cameron writing a script and nobody being able to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, or hey, maybe we should put this aside for another movie.
It makes me like sad at the thought of this not getting a sequel.
I
have you
see
heard
that in movies, and I don't get excited for the next movie when I see stuff like that, because I'm like, if that's what you brought as your A game the first time around, you're probably going to be a little lazier the second time it comes around, especially if the movie doesn't make a bunch of money. And I don't know, like, how would you feel if Alita 2 comes out and it's fucking terrible? Like, it's bad. Not just like bad, like fun bad, goofy bad, weird bad. It's just bad. Like, I feel like that would take away from your viewing of the first one more so also.
Yeah. If Edward Norton was great, then that's all I really care about after seeing this movie. But yeah, I just wish this was more self-contained. But as it is, if this never has a sequel, I still enjoyed it. And I liked a lot of ideas in it. And yes, that probably most of it is just from the manga. But I'm sure James Cameron added his spin on things. And Robert Rodriguez is also a pretty creative director. And
you know what did work for me with Robert Rodriguez? And this is one of the things where it's like, that's so goofy and weird, but it's kind of awesome. Is the Hunter Warriors when they turn in their bounties and little skull talks.
I love that
You've
guy.
collected the bounty. 300 credits.
He reminded me of like
It's fucking great.
Like Total Recall or like RoboCop kind of shit.
Very much so, yeah.
Loved that.
Especially Total Recall. That's one of those things where I first see it, I'm like, this is so fucking goofy. But then I'm like, you know, this is kind of cool. This is fucking cool though. And yeah. I feel like that's I don't know, just that little skull thing talking is so Robert Rodriguez, and nothing else in the movie I can really pinpoint as like, this is the most Robert Rodriguez shit ever. Mm-hmm. Except for maybe the bar scene. That bar, by the way, looked exactly like the bar, I feel like, from Dusk Till Dawn. Like, it felt like the exact same set redressed. I might be completely wrong about that, and my memory might just be shit, but it's like this very tall ceiling bar with like a few caveats on the side, and it's got this open floor plan with high-rise tables.
But don't they have like a strip stage on it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know. It's been a while.
Because she, what's her name?
It might just be that it's filmed the same way, so I aesthetically relate it to it. So.
But that scene was pretty great.
That was probably as far as like actually the movie being good and enjoyable goes, I think that was the peak right there in the bar scene.
Yes, and right after that scene when they're underground and fighting is another one of those moments where I was like, I've never seen this before. It was when Alita's just like barely together. She's just like an arm.
That was a great low point for them.
Really? I like that.
You're talking about well, no, I'm saying like low point for the character in terms of narrative.
Oh, yeah.
It's phenomenal. And it's like Alita, she needs to, hang on a second.
Yeah, you got Paul Walker outside.
Chill. It's a great low point for the movie because, narratively speaking, because Alita has that new body, the berserker body that, Christoph Waltz doesn't want to put her in. So she kind of goes into like this reckless living mode where she's just like angry and she is almost like trying to get herself destroyed. So he'll do it. And that scene was great where she's like about to actually just be like completely disintegrated. And she like fucking puts her arm through his eye. It was so visceral and brutal. That was a really good low point for the movie. And like I said, it's so frustrating to get, for me to come over the hurdle of Alita, to even sift past that crappy YA relationship and then get to that point, and still the movie fucking bucks me out after that. That's why I think the movie was so frustrating to me, because there's some definitely good stuff in there, interesting concepts, and I think it's just ruined by these really traditional problems that Hollywood studios and directors and producers have with adapting expansive universes into one movie. I think about like Dune, where it's like the series of like 11 books plus, and then They're trying to set up a movie. In the first movie, they're just like, oh, let's put this in here and that in here, and they just don't know what to put in and what to drag out and what to omit for another movie or what to hint at. And I feel like Alita suffered from that a lot after overcoming a lot of hurdles that I was expecting going into the movie.
It's currently got a 59 on Rotten Tomatoes. Come on. Give it a 60. Fair. Give it a fucking fresh. Come on. It's so close. It's got so much good, cool things that I've never seen before that I could not give this a
Just because you haven't seen them before doesn't mean they haven't existed before.
I know. In other mediums, sure. In movies, too, probably. But I thought this was a unique, interesting movie. And it did a pretty good job when it needed to, enough that I walked out happy. Yes, I walked in with about as low expectations as you can have. I was ready to, at best, laugh at it for being shitty, but I loved it. I thought it was great. It has a lot of problems, but...
I walked in with expectations of it being an average movie, above mediocre being an average movie. I originally expected it to be painfully mediocre, and I expected it to be an average movie after just somehow getting my hopes up a little bit, and then like you getting your response, and then I walked in and I left out slightly disappointed. So I think going in with expectations or no expectations will ultimately maybe decide whether you like or dislike the movie, I feel like. Or if you're just a fan of the manga and the anime and the IP, then you're just going to love it because,
But you've got to admit, it's more weird than you anticipated.
No, not really. It's more interesting than I expected. I'll give it that. It's definitely more interesting. I expected it to be really generic. I really like that world building of the economy of body parts and people being dismembered and for scrap and stuff like that. It's got those interesting concepts that are definitely from the manga, definitely bled over. But I feel like James Cameron just did a really bad job writing a narrative for a cohesive movie to introduce us to a universe. It feels very bloated. It feels like a movie where someone in charge wouldn't take no for an answer from anyone under him. It's got that kind of Lucas prequels kind of vibe to it. Whereas, like, obviously no one was going to be like, hey, James Cameron, no. This is the guy who made fucking Avatar, Even the producers are going to give him complete free reign.
Are you going to buy a ticket for Alita 2 if it ever comes out?
Well, we did an episode, so we basically have to. So, yeah.
And
you know what? Maybe I'll go in with with bottom of the barrel expectations, and maybe it'll be really good.
If I could pre-order my ticket now, I would. I'm so pumped. I want to see Ed Norton in tiny glasses again.
Don't even say that's that could be a thing in the future. Pre-order tickets to sequels to movies. Oh God.
What if it helped finance the movie? That could work.
Well, I mean, movies do that on Kickstarter already, kind of.
Yeah. So, what would you give this on your rating scale?
I'm gonna give it like a 50.
I would give this like a 78.
I can see why you put it in the 70 range. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch this movie again, and maybe I'll be able to give it the "It's trash, I love it" score sometime. But I don't know. As it stands, a lot of writing issues mainly. That's really what stands out. Like I said, not the IP. The IP is in the world of Alita really is some of the more interesting stuff I got out of the movie. I think if I had to point a finger at something, it would be James Cameron adapting it and James Cameron not trimming it enough.
I totally accept the flaws. I noticed them, but just the weird, interestingness of this movie shined through to me enough that I was able to overlook the flaws and give it a higher score and just really enjoy how crazy this fucking movie gets. Jennifer Connelly's brain in a box. Great. That would be my one sentence review.
Maybe at that point, maybe if I didn't miss that, maybe that would have, the brain in the box would have tipped it over. It's trash, I love it. Because I was laughing at certain parts of the movie. Like when he had his head on the robot, I was laughing in the theater and shaking my head.
Yeah, it's right after that. It might have been the last little staple that
I remember exactly when I walked out. Because I thought it was just going to be a cliche death. Where I think the second I walked out, I looked over my shoulder and it was like the shadow of the big mech dude walking in the room with Jennifer Connelly by the elevator. I think that's the moment I walked out. And then I went to the bathroom really quick. And I never leave the theater to go pee or anything. I watched Batman vs Superman and held my piss in the entire movie. But for this movie, I actually, after a certain point, I was like, I'm going to pee. Fuck this. So that's kind of, I don't know.
I'm Googling it right now. I really want to find this image of the brain.
Send it to me, because I haven't even seen it.
I can't find it, man. It makes me so mad. To me, it looks so stupid. It looked like...
Send us an email at Jennifer Connelly's brain in a box at tabunda.com.
It looked like It reminded me of like some Mars Attacks style shit. It looks so like bad and great at the same time. It was amazing.
It's kind of funny that we reference Mars Attacks because Mars does attack in this movie.
Oh yeah, didn't think about that. Yeah.
What if they just like Alita like remembers her everything and then she starts like she remembers her like native language and she's just like nyek nyek nyek.
Knack, knack. Oh my god.
Oh.
All right, well.
I think that's about it. With Alita.
Battle Angel.
Well, thank you for listening to the Tabuda podcast. If you like this video, go ahead and hit like, leave a comment if you your feelings on Alita, what you thought worked, what you thought didn't work. If there are things in the manga that maybe got a little bastardized with the film. If you want to see more content from us, we have a Patreon link below where you can actually actively participate in our videos by selecting what movies you want us to watch in theaters, and we do retrospective reviews. I think we've done contemporary stuff right now, but we'll have some post-mortems of older movies that we're going to start doing soon. And I promise you we're going to do videos on movies that I actually like. I don't hate everything. I hate a lot of things, but not everything. I'll try and watch Alita again someday and give it maybe some more fair dues. I have grown to like it a little bit more than when I first walked out of the theater. But that's about it. Caleb, you have anything else to say for the audience?
What is the fighting style? The German word that you love?
Oh my god. Panzerkunst.
Panzerkunst.
Oh god, I fucking would have ripped my ears off every time I heard that. Until next time, Jennifer Connelly's brain in a box.
In a box.
A fucking box.